good defensive rebounder. He's not an out-of-this-world athlete, so he's not a Josh Jackson in that regard. He's not an Andrew Wiggins in that regard. He is a natural, gifted scorer, and he's a terrific kid. He's only going to get better.
You saw him throughout the tournament, Kenny. What'd you like about Tatum's game?
Well, I always say, who does this guy play like? And sometimes it's a guy who's recent and current in the NBA, and sometimes it's past or present. But I'm going to go a past guy. He reminds me of Marcus Johnson. 6'8",
wow,
broad shoulders, handle the ball, can shoot it, can post up, shoot the three. Played with the Milwaukee Bucks for a long period, played with the Clippers a little bit, but more of a bulk. But he was a guy who was so versatile. He was kind of one of those first fours that handled the ball. And that's what I think that Tatum is and can grow into, because if we would have seen him play 3 or 4 years of college basketball, his body would fill out and be what I think Marcus Johnson was.
Smitty, let's break down what you see from Tatum on the floor at Duke and show the Celtics fans what they're getting here at number 3.
Well, you have a guy that's, I think, the best ISO player in the draft right now. He can definitely catch the basketball at the mid-range, and he doesn't need a lot of dribbles, similar to Carmelo Anthony. If you watch him right now, I also label him as a gamer. Whatever his need for Coach K is, he brought that. Like Sip said, he played a lot of 5, he played some 4, but he could handle the basketball, and he had decent vision. But what he did best was being able to score the basketball. When the plays broke down in Duke, Coach K could go right to him, and he could go get a bucket. He could go get a foul. That's the one area, though, he has to work on his free throws to be able to get a higher percentage. But he's one of those guys that can score the basketball, and he doesn't need a help from a pick. He's an isolation, one-on-one type guy.
And I know the analytics guys don't like mid-range shots too much, but to me 2 points is 2 points, and he has kind of an old school mid-range type of game. So I think in an NBA where it's more of an open court, more of a spread out situation offensively, shorter shot clock, I think he's going to be able to take advantage of mismatches on his defenders. You put a smaller guy on him, he can go into the post. A bigger guy, he can take him outside, and he can do a lot of work inside between a shooter and a scorer, which is unusual for someone who's only 19 years old.
We talked about whether or not Porzingis, Butler, or George are going to be moved. Butler officially moved already. How about Paul George reports and talks with the Celtics? What about, we talk about the fit with the Lakers or the Cavaliers. What about a George fit, Kenny, with the Celtics?
Well, there are certain guys that, regardless of it, it's not if they fit. It's just how guys are going to fit with them. Paul George is a how are they going to fit with him type of guy. LeBron James doesn't go to Cleveland and worry about guy fitting in. He doesn't go to Miami worrying about fitting in. Paul George will not go anywhere worrying about fitting in.
All right, speaking of fitting in, again, we don't want to assume, but we're pretty sure this is going to end up being either Josh Jackson.
Better point guard, CP3 or D-Will, but there's no debate anymore.
What a play by Chris Paul.
Russell Westbrook was taken by Seattle in 2008.
Tell us from the Seattle Supersonics, what do you see in this young man?
He's a great defender, a great guy to be around, I heard, and he's a great addition to our team, so I'm excited to play for him next year.
Smitty, but my own interactions with the kid, he seems a very thoughtful, mature kid. I was quite surprised to hear those reports. Hopefully that's not something that's going to be a problem down the line as he gets his hands on more money. And
he's tough. He can play down there in the post. The next level for him is working on that jump shot, but you're talking about a guy that will compete, go out there with toughness. He's Detroit tough. The one thing about this kid is he will not be afraid to play against anybody. He will come out there and compete. The one thing I love about him, Kenny, is he wants to guard the best player, and you don't have a lot of young guys want to do that.
Deal, they now were building, looking for new franchise faces. They've got this pick coming at number 5 and also number 10. A lot of people have thought that maybe they go small and big, get a De'Aaron Fox here and then go for a Zach Collins. They have a chance to make a big impact here.
They do. Jonathan Isaac to me would be a very compelling choice here. Again, a guy who's going to be more of a long-term type of play. De'Aaron Fox would have an immediate impact in terms of the pace that they're able to play. So I think we're into the part of the draft where we could get some surprises because there are no obvious. In these first 4, we pretty much knew how they were going to go. Right now is when the surprises would start. For me, I would go with Jonathan Isaac here because in today's NBA is a 6'11 guy.
After that,
by the way,
it was out of the way.
30
years ago. Happy 30.
30 years ago, huh? Do the math.
Hey, man, I still look the same other than the flat top.
How many Tar Heels have been drafted so far?
Oh, a lot. Well, they will be.
How many Sparties are getting drafted in the first 2 rounds?
We'll have one. We'll have Justin Jackson.
Guess
and
what?
we'll have a couple in the second round, too.
Where'd Seth go?
Isaiah Hicks will be in the second round. Yeah, no question.
I'm the journalist on the desk. I don't know.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think it's Fox. The Fox, would be a pick.
Fox.
But I'm not 100% sure. Don't be surprised.
We are about to find out who's at number 5. But first we look back at who filled out the hand.
With the 5th overall pick in the 1987 NBA draft, the Seattle Supersonics selected Scottie Pippen out of Central Arkansas, an NAIA school at the time. Pippen was then flipped to the Chicago Bulls as part of a package that included Olden Polynice, in one of the most impactful draft day trades in league history. Although the 6'7" Pippen didn't make his first start until the playoffs of his rookie year, he was the perfect teammate and sidekick to Michael Jordan. Pip was a do-it-all wing who could bring the ball up the floor, shoot threes, and defend every position. Today, we talk a lot about stars who can play multiple positions, but Scottie was one of the first Swiss Army knife type of players who could truly do it all. With the 5th pick of the 2017 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select
De'Aaron Fox is the pick at number 5. Woo! The first of what will be 3 first-round picks we expect out of Kentucky. I'm wearing his colors. We saw him in the tournament look set. A lot of people put it into stock. That matchup against Lonzo Ball, he said, I wanted to shut him up, and he put 39 on.
Quickest college point guard that I've seen in the last 10 or 15. Certainly much more of an open court game, gets up and down. His outside shooting is a big-time question mark, only 25% from 3. That's going to have to come up if he's going to want to be truly effective at that position. But one thing that he does exceptionally well, and that is push the basketball in the open court. So this basketball team that picked him right now just got a whole lot faster by giving him the ball.
Let me go to that because for both of you, they talk about Fox. Now, he says he's a better shooter than people think, but they talk about the shooting. Does he remind you of a John Wall? Look, same school. Talking about a guy who is going to churn out Monk, Adebayo, and now Fox here in the first round.
I mean, and not to be disparaging, there's some players came out of there after one and done that weren't ready. You know, I'm not always saying that every guy coming out of any school or any place is ready after 1 year. I could give you a list of 4 or 5 guys that weren't ready from the same university. However, this guy here, 2 more years. I went 4. I think Smitty, you went 3. You went 4. But Smitty went 4. So you learn how to be a little bit more of a professional. But when you go to a team that's young in the NBA that's losing, learning how to be a professional is probably the biggest thing that De'Aaron Fox is going to have to learn daily
to teach him how to be a guy. And as a point guard, you got to learn how to say no, because there are a lot of guys who want the basketball.
But, I have to say, to Casey's point, I think that's what Kentucky does exceptionally well. But I think Calipari is a great coach. But the reason why his guys do well in the league is because he's recruiting the best players in high school. So they come in at a level that, a lot of other high school players are not. But the whole culture at Kentucky, to Kenny's point, is about the entirety of being a professional, what's involved in all of it, and playing under the most intense public and fan scrutiny and media scrutiny at Kentucky. So I think De'Aaron Fox, in terms of his mental makeup, is going to be as well prepared as a 19-year-old could be. But, Kenny's right. That's why I think we see, generally speaking, these rookies don't have an impact when they first come into the NBA. It is a huge leap from college to the pros.
Longest streaks of consecutive years with first-round picks. Now at 8 for Kentucky. Going back to now tie that record in the mark from UCLA. And guys, the interesting thing now when you look at picks is this is where it becomes fascinating from an NBA side, because Kenny, Smitty, when you look at Orlando, no offense to Elfrid Payton, but I'm sure a lot of fans of the Magic feel
79 and ushering in the beginning of Larry Legend. With the 6th pick of the 2017 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select
Isaac is the pick from Florida State, 6'10", forward. Flashes on the glass at Florida State. He averaged 9.6 boards. This is a guy who's...
Hopefully it's not too windy down there in Orlando, because at 6'11", 205, he might just blow right off the court. But he absolutely tantalizes you with his frame, his game. He's got a 7'1" wingspan, made 35% from three-point range. A little bit too deferential, I think, in terms of his offensive game. They had a couple aggressive in terms of hunting their own shots, so that's maybe a question mark that he brings to the next level. More of a long-term play, but, and you want to talk about upside, and I know the NBA draft is all about potential and upside. He has as much.
When he was at IMG Academy with my son KJ, they were talking about, he was asking, could he leave after IMG because he was already 19 years old. Yeah. So he was trying to test that rule in. But the one thing that the strengths that he had that I looked at the board, it said rebounding and shot blocking. He didn't really do IMG for me. He didn't, because they played a 1-3-1 defense. He played the top of the 1-3-1. So he was playing guards out front for ball movement. So I always envisioned him being a 3. And then when he went to Florida State, flipped up, they moved him back into the 3-4 position, and he became a shot blocker, more of a shot blocker and rebounder. I was like, wow, if they would have put him back there in high school, y'all might not have lost the game, because he shot it well to me in high school.
The Bulls in that trade, remember, be Lauri Markkanen, the big man, to add to that mix in Chicago. Seems like, Seth, when you look at it, that's the fit. A lot of talk about him. Can he defend at the level enough to work that great shot?
Well, that's a concern. I think he can.
This spot in the past. We're past that point where we've gotten some of the point guards out of the way. We wonder if we get the first big. In the next 10 picks, you could get 4, 6'10", 6'11", or bigger in this draft. Will this be the first one that we get in this pick for Chicago as they get a chance to make their pick at number 7 again after the Butler trade? Butler going to Minnesota, and in return they get Dunn and Levine, and this pick at 7. The Bulls also,
you know, the Knicks, I'm a New Yorker. I just want a guy who can play. You know, even though I never played with the Knicks, I've always been a Knicks fan. Give me a guy who can play. I want to come to Madison Square Garden and cheer my home team on.
Game 7, when John was shooting all those shots, if you're a Knicks fan, could you have just stopped them from shooting? Yeah,
no,
would have helped me out.
Would have
helped out.
Remember, I was on the court.
No, that's why I'm asking.
I'm just saying.
That's why I'm
asking. I was like, shoot it, John.
Shoot
it,
Mr. Knicks fan.
I was like, swing it to John. Swing it to John.
He's open.
Well, that hence the irony. We'll discuss that during the break. In the meantime, we get a chance to wait for number 7. The commissioner has the pick. We await whether or not the Bulls will end up going with a big in Markkanen at Arizona, or ironically going out west as well, Gonzaga, who had a Zach Collins. And Seth, the interesting thing about Collins, did not start with the Zags this past year.
All season long, and really had that one great game. Now, he played well throughout the course of the year, but he played big in a big spot. Played well against top competition in those last 3 games. So one thing you wonder about him is, you know, playing in the West Coast Conference, he's not playing against the elite of the elite in college basketball. Showed at the Final Four he's capable of doing that.
We look back at number 7s in the past.
With the 7th pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors select
a very, very valuable asset.
Smitty, Nikola Mirotic is a restricted free agent. This is a guy who, whether he leaves or not now, would be sitting there looking like he's going to have a starting spot. They're clearly looking for the future. So what do you think about, as you look at the full package, done at the point, you've got Levine, and now adding Markkanen to this new mix here with the Bulls?
Well, I like Markkanen. I got a chance to call his game against Xavier, and I think he struggled because Xavier plays small ball. And I think the one thing about him is I looked at him and saw his skill set. He can handle the basketball. He can make plays. But everybody talks about his three-point shot, but he was comfortable down there on the block. And he used his side. Is the one thing talking to Sean Miller about him, he said he's the most focused player he's ever had. He commits to in the gym or playing basketball. I think it's a good fit. He's not just a pick and pop guy. He's a physical guy that can put on the ball a little bit on the block.
All right, the next pick goes to the New York Knicks. Now,
that he had the explosiveness, the ability to get to the basket. And Seth, as you know, because I'm sure you watched that game when he went into Cameron Indoor Stadium and he put on an absolute show.
Number 8.
With the 8th pick in the 1964 NBA draft, the Knicks selected Willis Reed out of Grambling State. New York was coming off a rough year in which they went 22-58 and missed the playoffs for a 5th straight season. Reed, of course, captained the Knicks to a pair of NBA championships, including an historic win over the Lakers in 1970. When he famously played on a severely injured hip.
Willis has hit on his first 2. The New York Knickerbockers have won the 1969-70 World Championship of Basketball.
With the 8th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select.
All right, so a lot of movement going on right now. We've got a major trade that is going to be affecting this division heavily, but will it be as much as Frank Ntilikina, as we see that Paul George could be on his way to the Celtics? We'll get to that in a second. For Ntilikina, this is a guy that can get down the floor. He's big, he's got a lot of size, and Phil Jackson seemed to be high into him, and so did Dallas. We bring in our own international expert, Scott Howard Cooper. Scott, give us, they're going to call him Frankie because no one's going to be able to pronounce his last name, even though it is Tilakina. Give us a sense of what we should know about Frank.
Well, 18 years old and already has a very advanced basketball IQ. He's smart. He comes from a strong background. This is a guy, European scouts tell the story that he would ride his bike to practice last year. So New York is obviously...
I'm not going to defend, as a Knick guy through and through, I'm not going to defend anything Phil has done. But the one thing you can say is 2 years ago, the Porzingis move got blasted by everyone because they thought there were better players that we knew that he should have picked. And Porzingis has looked like he's as good as anyone in that draft. Does that give you any more of a sense of security that maybe that same group looks at T. Kalina and thinks he could be the next guy?
Well, Porzingis was a great pick, but the Knicks were still a terrible team. So it's really about how you utilize your tools. You know, you could be a hell of a plumber, but if you start banging the pipes with a hammer, you suck. So you got to use your tools correctly. So drafting the correct player, to me, is more about using your tools correctly when they're there, not looking at them and saying, wow, he still has potential. So Porzingis has a lot of potential. Congratulations. But the Knicks, as a team, didn't make the playoffs, and they should have been a playoff team. They have enough talent, if you look at the individual parts, to be a playoff team. So, no, the plumber is banging the pipes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it doesn't help. You know, you need to take the monkey wrench out and use it correctly because we got leaks all over the place.
Right.
Still, you are making more holes in my pipes, and I don't think that, to me, the general manager or coach.
4 years later. With the 9th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select
Dennis Smith out of NC State, 6'2" point guard, arguably the most explosive athlete in the entire draft despite tearing the ACL little over a year ago. I remember when the Knicks drafted Frederick Weiss and the next pick was...
Basketball, there really is no different. Both of them played on, terrible teams in terms of college basketball rankings, but they both produce high numbers, can create off the dribble. Jump shot is adequate enough to keep you honest, and this guy has talent. And like I said earlier, I've seen him do it in Cameron Indoor Stadium. If you do it there, you're doing it at one of the highest stages.
You know, one thing, Seth, watching him, big shot maker. Even though he's not a shooter, this is a guy who wanted the ball, shot clock winding down, taking big shots.
Well, I'm a fan of his ability. I'm certainly a fan of his physique, his athleticism, his aggressiveness when he chooses to play that way. It's interesting to me that there's been so much talk about Markelle Fultz and his team not winning. Well, NC State won 4 games in the ACC last year. What do both those guys have in common, by the way? Their coaches both got fired at the end of the season. Now, I guess maybe Fultz being number one, it's been more of a conversation. But what I've heard from NBA scouts about Dennis Smith is, unlike Fultz, necessarily bring it every game. He had games where he got frustrated, his effort wasn't there, his intensity wasn't there, not necessarily always making his teammates better. When the lights were on and the games were big, like that game in Cameron, he's got that top shelf in the closet that very few kids in this draft can reach. So it's nitpicking a little bit. He's a 19-year-old freshman. He's not a scorer. That worries me a little bit, Smitty, because like we said earlier, you got to be a point guard. You got to be a points guard. He's not a smooth.
I feel like, me and my top speed, I feel like it won't be a problem, but it's a lot more physical. I know I'm going to have to get my body.
DeMarcus Cousins give you any tips about Sacramento?
Nah, DeMarcus never told me.
Zach Collins at this pick, he'll be a better fit than Malik Monk right now.
You like him with Nurkic?
I'm sorry?
You like him with Nurkic
Yeah,
together?
because Zach Collins can play outside, and he's the guy that can have a feel and play off another big. So I think it's Zach Collins at this pick.
And Zags going to Portland, I mean, does anything else make more sense?
That part of it makes sense. I would hope that's not too high a priority at this point in the NBA draft. But, Zach Collins was one of
this. As much Seth as probably anybody over the last year since the tournament, showed the ability to knock down the three, did a lot of things, but again, we saw it in the tourney probably more than during the season.
Yeah, that was part of the question. 2 things. First of all, he did not start for Gonzaga. He was their 6th man off the bench because they had Shemek Karnowski in with those 2 guards, who I think he did quite well.
Kenny, I want to ask you about that. You played in the tournament. You talk about the medal you saw at Dennis Smith playing in that conference. What does it tell you about a player and his readiness for this level when you see him perform the way that Collins did in the tournament?
Well, I think the one thing that if you're a big, a lot of times you know, I think he can shoot the three, but I think it's more important, can you defend the three? And can you be out there and defend guys who can take it off the dribble? And he's one of those guys who maybe have that versatility. So the NBA bigs now are not specialists as much as anymore. They need to have versatility if they want to be on the floor and get drafted high. You know, with the exception of, you know, the JaVale McGee's and DeAndre Jordans of the world, you know, most guys are now being both versatile enough to play 3, 4, or 5. And that's important for Portland and the way they play, and they definitely needed some size.
You know, the thing, Smitty, that you love too, he can get up and down the floor. We saw Nurkic's ability to kind of change things that way, and Dame loved playing with him. How good of a fit is Collins in this group in Portland?
You know, the first thing I want to say is people say he came off the bench in Gonzaga. Well, it wasn't a great fit playing with Karnowski. He was talented enough to start. He was talented enough to be their go-to guy, but it was a better fit for them. So watching him play is he's a player that needed to be featured, and he couldn't be featured starting. He has a chance because of his ability and, like you said, his nastiness. I saw it. He can play out, he can play at the mid-range, and he can play. He's athletic enough to play with guys above the rim. I like him because he can play without the basketball. He's going to have to do a lot of that with those guards and CJ and Damian Lillard.
All right, now interesting coming up here at 11 because we saw a couple of trades before, guys, we got here. The Laker deal, obviously, with Brooklyn, Lopez and Mozgov and Russell going the other way. But there was also that deal down by us in the ATL where Dwight Howard was on the move to Charlotte. Now, they've got Kemba Walker, they've got Batum, they've got MKG. I keep going back here. It's because I'm wearing their colors. Is Malik Monk a fit? Could you play Batum at the 3 and move Monk next to Kemba Walker? Or did they, again, maybe go with a bigger player here?
Well, you know, once you start getting to, 11, 12 and on, you're either going to surprise people by being a starter or you're really a second unit guy. And, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, in your first coming into the NBA being a second unit guy. But because a lot of times you get more touches, you get more valuable touches being a second unit guy over the 82-game season. So, you know, yes, he could play at that position, but in a second unit. I think having guys like Walker and him together, Malik Monk, they'd be too small for a lot of teams. So, yeah, I think he could play, but a second unit, he'd be really valuable coming off that bench.
All right, I'm with Kenny. I think whether you start him or not, I think this is the pick for them. The reason why is Charlotte needs shooting. They got rid of Bellinelli. They never had a guy that can just flat out shoot the basketball to give some space to Kemba Walker. They got rid of Bellinelli. You have Nicholas Batum playing the 2. I think he's a better 3. So I think is that Malik Monk will be the pick whether he starts or not. They need a guy that can stretch the floor for Kemba Walker.
Something about Monk I was going to ask you, Seth. Yeah. 3D did a piece with him, and he was talking about that he was good. He's a point guard who Cal wanted to play too because they had Fox. He's got some handles, and he's a guy who, I mean, is this the best shooter in the draft? We've seen Markkanen go. We know about Fultz. There are others. Is this your favorite shooter in the draft when you look at Monk?
He's the number 1 heat check guy in the draft, and I will say for a guy who considers himself a point guard, I didn't see him making a lot of point guard type of plays, particularly in the half court. At Kentucky this year, they had some other guys who could handle the ball, not only Fox, but also Isaiah Briscoe. If Charlotte's looking for that type of a player, Monk is the best in that group. You've got Luke Kennard still out there. You've got Donovan Mitchell. Out of those 3, I think it's clear that Monk is the best player. You've got some front court type scorers from North Carolina who are also available right now. Justin Jackson from North Carolina, John Collins from Wake Forest. So, it's kind of a muddle. But to me, to get Malik Monk at 11 is pretty good. And I like him as a second unit guy. I like him as a microwave coming off the bench and giving a jolt to their offense. I think that's a great role for him, especially as a rookie.
Can he be a Lou Williams maybe type at this level, an automatic offense guy as a 6th man? I mean, is he a guy who you think eventually develops into a star player?
You know, I don't know if he'll be a star, but the one thing about him is I think he'll be in the rotation. I think he has that type of ability, and we've shown that he's a guy that can get hot quickly, and he can create his own shot, and he can catch and shoot. So I think this is a good fit for Kemba Walker. This would help Kemba Walker and also the Charlotte Hornets. They have Dwight Howard.
But don't discredit the Tar Heel connection, with Justin Jackson and Michael Jordan. Then the size. Michael Jordan likes size at that position. So there's a chance that Justin Jackson, who is a really good three-point shooter, he can play the position at size, and you have Batum at size, and you have rebounding from positions that typically you won't have rebounding from. So you'd have a 6'7" 2 guard and a 6'8" 3.
11, we're going to find out whether or not it is Monk or others. Let's look back at number 11s in the past.
We're going to go to the Commissioner David Stern right now for the next selection. Here's David.
The Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Miller had that reputation as a great outside shooter in college.
What are you thinking right now?
It's great. I would just like to come in and play hard. It's just a
point range, which isn't so much of a problem because that's going to happen, but my issue is that in that game he had 3 rebounds and 1 assist. Had another game 3 for 13 against Tennessee. That's the question that I have with Malik Monk, as opposed to someone like Justin Jackson, who I think Charlotte should have taken with this pick, quite frankly, because Justin Jackson to me is someone who can score a lot of points. He can do a lot of other things to help you win when he
showed against Carolina. He had 47 big ones. He can flat out score the basketball, and he hunts shots. So I think this is a great fit for the Charlotte, also for Kemba Walker. The way they're made up, they don't have guys with the attitude of going out there and hunt shots besides Kemba Walker. I think for Charlotte, this is a good pick.
Well, development again. If it's the right pick, it's going to be the development of Malik Monk. He has extraordinary scoring ability. The funny thing is, if he would have had a end of year like he had a beginning of year, he came out in such a bonfire at the beginning. I think people started to look to see what he can't do. If he, instead of he didn't progress into this.
Right.
He came out right away.
Right.
Giving numbers to everyone. So he was the big number 1 kind of pick.
Ahead of Fox?
Everybody.
Sure.
He was ahead of everyone early. And then it was like, okay, well, let me see what he can't do. So it actually hurt him playing well early. But I think he's still scoring the basketball is the premium in the NBA. I haven't seen a guy get drafted that says he is the premier shot blocker in college basketball. That doesn't happen anymore. Those guys do not get drafted number 1. If you got to put the ball in the basket, that becomes your defense. So if he learns how to score the same way he does in college against taller, bigger, faster players, then he is what they needed. That's the key. Can you score the basketball now is the number 1 priority in NBA.
Yeah, look.
Question, are they going to play big or small? Are they going to get rid of their bigs and start going small? We don't know.
Why did Ish Smith outplay Jackson, who was supposed to be the point guard?
Without question. So that's what we have to see.
With KCP, if he prices himself out, we could see a 2-guard here. As we look ahead to number 12, we look at 12s of the past.
With the 12th pick in the 1972 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks selected Julius Erving.
And there is Julius Erving. Look at that move behind the back. Oh!
It was a gamble of sorts for the Bucks, since Dr. J was already playing with the ABA's Virginia Squires and finished 5th in the league in scoring as a rookie. But the Bucks were coming off a 63-win season and had Kareem and Oscar on their roster, while the ABA was always seemingly on the verge of collapse. But Erving carried the new league for 5 seasons before he finally made his way to the NBA. As a member of the Philadelphia 76ers.
The Doctor, a living legend.
With the 12th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select.
I like it. I like him.
The selection for the Pistons is Luke Kennard out of Duke. So where else would I go but down on the end? Seth Davis, take it away.
Kenny want to take this one. Interesting choice here between Kennard and Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's the better athlete, better defender. Kennard the better pure shooter. And a 6'5 lefty, kind of unconventional, able to finish with both hands, though. 49% overall from the floor. You see the three-point shooting there, almost 44%. An excellent passer and a good ball handler, a good playmaker for his teammates. I think he's the type of player who can play well with other really good players. That's what he showed at Duke, one of the best players in the ACC. I think he's going to make a nice transition into the pros, kind of maybe a poor man's Devin Booker, just in terms of that smooth shooting ability, get him open, play off screens, play in space. He'll be able to score the basketball.
You guys both saw a lot of Kennard in the tournament. Smitty, I'll start with you. What'd you like?
Well, I like it that he can make shots, and that's the one thing for him is on a catch and shoot, he's pretty good. And he was was a gamer for Duke. But one thing I struggle right now for this fit is you don't have a lot of guys that move the basketball around. Reggie Jackson is a scoring guard that really hasn't found out how to pass the basketball and have other guys help him. And then you have Drummond. He draws double teams, but he's not going to kick out. So you have him basically as a decoy. Unless you have him in the second unit with an Ish Smith. I like Luke Kennard. I don't like him with the Detroit.
Well,
they should have taken Justin Jackson.
No, no. I just think that Luke is proven that he can play against the best, against attributes that typically would shut guys like his skill set down. So you say, okay, if I put a guy like this on him, that typically would shut him down, and it did not in college basketball. He was still able to get his shot off. He was able to beat people off the dribble. He was able to kind of create space and draw fouls. So why wouldn't that translate at the next level? He's already proven that he could do it. So I think that it's a good pick. I think that he's going to be a really solid NBA player. I don't think he's going to have a struggles scoring the basketball, but I think he will have struggles sometime in the pace of the game, maybe getting caught from three-point line to three-point line. And that might be the only problem is straight output speed when you have to catch people on the break or catch up to people. Not when you're ahead of them, but when you have to catch up to them. And I think that's probably would be the only problem he'll have. But he's going to be able to score.
You know, we go from a team who has questions about who they are to a team who has questions of who's going to be on the floor with Denver because Gallinari already opts out. We've got questions.
Still a young player with potential. Maybe he's a guy that they could shop. I mean, they have somewhere in the neighborhood of $30-35 million of spending power. So this is a team that. But really the question becomes what happens with Danilo Gallinari? The team was on the verge of the playoffs. They were close. They didn't get there. Do they want to pay Gallinari as much as he can get? He can get like $35 million. I feel like that's too much. But, you know, it's up to the Nuggets. I think if you pay him around $15-20 million.
Point guard John Stockton and the mailman would go on to win a pair of MVP trophies, lead the Jazz to 2 NBA finals, the second most in NBA. The 13th pick of the 2017 NBA draft.
And the money to stay, that's going to change a lot of how we look at Utah, right? I mean, this is a major factor with this team heading into this year.
Well, about money, this is just my personal opinion as a Blue Devil.
I think for me, this is perfect fit for Justin Jackson because I think he has a skill set that can come out there and be a big-time scorer in this league. But I think Miami Heat will help him because the way their culture will help him get to that level.
We'll see what happens. Winslow's still there off the injury. You've got some guards. Do they end up going with Justin Jackson at North Carolina? Or do we see Kentucky get their third of the first-round picks and a guy I know our buddy Rex Chapman loves in Idris or Bam, if you will, out of Bayou? Or the unicorn Harry Giles is out there, and he's going to go at some point here. Will it be lucky number 14? We'll look ahead as we get that pick from Miami in just a bit here with the Heat. Remember, we're giving you all the coverage of picks. We're also got our own capologist here in Eric Pincus. We got Scott Howard Cooper on the international players, and we've got you with a look back at number 14.
With the 14th pick in the 1983 NBA draft, the Portland Trailblazers selected Clyde Drexler.
Your attention, please. Portland selects Clyde Drexler, University of Houston.
It was amazing the two-guard was passed over 13 times since he seemingly had a ready-made NBA game. He was 6'7", athletic, played solid defense, and could really jump. Although the Clyde played sparingly his first year in the NBA, the Blazers were impressed with the rookie and knew they had a long-term answer at shooting guard. So much so that they passed on another talented two-guard the following year during the NBA draft. Maybe you've heard of him.
Well, Bam Adebayo is a great post defender. You saw him playing out on a three-point shot there, finisher at the rim. I said it about 100 times during the course of the season. He hates rims. So he's a power player, power dunker. He is a player kind of from a bygone era. We don't see a lot of these types of players right now in the NBA. Not a whole lot of touch, 65% free throw shooter. He's going to have to get better in that regard. Terrific wingspan, 7'2" wingspan. He goes 6'10", 250. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I'm just saying we don't see a lot of players like this doing great things in the NBA, certainly from an offensive standpoint. It's just not where the game is now.
So the foul of Bam?
What's that?
The foul of Bam is going to be in a
It could be. It could very well be.
Well, here's the question. You got Hassan Whiteside, right?
Yes.
Protects the rim, does a lot of these things, size. Where does Bam fit? Is he a 4 for them? I mean, did they see him next?
He will be a backup center or a 4. You know, they don't have size, and you know what he is. He's a bigger, newer version of Adonis Haslam.
Okay.
So they're trying to get that
good
toughness.
Career there.
Yeah, that toughness that he brought to this team. I think Bam can bring to Miami. I think that's what they were looking at. You know, Adonis is in his last years, can kind of school him into that role and spoon him in, and I think that's what they were looking for.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kenny. I look at him as like a Udonis, a Tristan Thompson. The guy's going to protect the rim, rebound the basketball.
Well, if he's Tristan,
coming off the bench for them because they have a Whiteside. So it's a nice pick. I like him. I just like Justin Jackson a little bit more at that pick.
Well, I think Justin, I would be surprised if the Portland Trail Blazers didn't take him because of the size. You know, they're small in the backcourt, and they could get, you know, when they.
You saying Justin Jackson?
Right. So they could get big in the backcourt, and they could have all the other threes. Those guys with Harkless and all those other guys kind of play that multicultural kind of multifaceted game all over the park. I said multicultural.
All right, now you guys can continue.
Say that again, Kenny.
Multifaceted.
You guys can keep tweeting us along the way with our polls. I got a poll for the panel. 2 hours and 8 minutes, no commercials in the C2S to P.
Oh, we all have to use the restroom. Hey, listen, I'm 50 years old, man.
I need a nap.
When you hit 50, yo, it's not when do you have to go. You have to go often.
Right.
You just got to go often.
We're going in size order, and I'm first. First pick, Markelle Fultz. Lonzo Ball at 2 to the Los Angeles Lakers. Dan LeVar happy to be uniting with Magic Johnson. As the crying continues, the drafting goes on, and the peeing begins. We'll see you in a bit. Barkley.
We tried to play it safe.
You don't have enough money to send your daughter to college.
And it got us nowhere. We gotta change. So we turned Frank's house into a casino. The house always wins. Is this one of the sunglasses? No. I got them at Marshall's in the Euro section.
The House, rated R, June 30th.
This is a story about mail and packages. And it's also a story about people. People who rely on us every day to deliver their dreams. They're handing us more than mail. They're handing us their business. And while we make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country, we never forget that your business is our business. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.
I joined the Army in July of '98.
Our 18-year-old was in an accident. When I called USAA, it was that voice asking me, is your daughter okay? That's where I felt relief.
We're the Rivera family, and we will be with USAA for life.
Perfect. Guys! 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 Come on! Go, go, go!
The all-new Volkswagen Atlas with easy access third row. Life's as big as you make it.
Did you hear about the Transform Your Summer sweepstakes?
Totally. Maybe you'll win a trip to Hollywood.
If I win, I will take my car. Hop in, we'll carpool.
New color-changing slushes and see Transformers The Last Night in theaters June 21st. This is Sonic.
Listen up, basketball fans. Mountain Dew and the NBA are taking 3-on-3 hoops to the next level. The Dew NBA 3X Tour is back, and it's coming to a city near you, bringing you fast-paced basketball action you won't find anywhere else. Come watch local legends go head-to-head as they compete to play on the national stage. Bring your friends, and don't miss out on the hottest hoops competition before it hits the road. For tour dates and locations, visit DewNBA3X.com.
The 2017 NBA Awards will be handed out live on TNT this Monday at 9 Eastern. Find out who wins the Key MVP Defensive Player of the Year and more. Performance from Nicki Minaj and hosted by Drake. Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern on TNT. We look at number 15.
With the 15th pick in the 1996 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Steve Nash from the University of Santa Clara.
9 years after he was drafted, Steve Nash became the lowest selected MVP in league history. The point guard out of Santa Clara repeated the following year in 2006, while making the high-scoring Suns one of the most exciting teams of the 2000s. 2 recent number 15 picks hope to join Nash as league MVP. Kawhi Leonard, no stranger to hardware, and the Bucks' Giannis Antetokounmpo have their sights set on the Maurice Podoloff Trophy in years to come. With the 15th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select
Justin Jackson is the pick out of North Carolina. Well, Kenny salivates. Let's go to Seth and get his take on Justin Jackson. Why? Give us a sense of a guy who shouldn't fall in this far, right?
Well, you know, you can't. There's nothing that outrageous about it. I mean, it's about where he was projected to go. I may have picked him a couple of spots higher just because I think he has a lot of improving still yet to do. Again, we have this idea that just because a guy's 22 years old means he can't get better. Look how he got better in North Carolina. Started off as a 30% three-point shooter, 29 as a sophomore, went up to 37 this past year. Went from 10 to 12 to 18 points a game. His free throw shooting was better this year, and his mentality, his aggression. Remember, he could have been maybe a first-round pick last year, certainly could have come out into the draft, wanted to go back to North Carolina to get better. So he has that type of mindset. And for all you young kids out there, go on YouTube and check out George Iceman Gervin, because that's who this guy reminds me of. He can score behind the three-point line, at the rim, in between, floater, finger roll, and he's got a lot of room to get better. The mindset, he's proven that he can get better. Right now, in my view, he's the steal of the draft.
Now look, in Sacramento, Cauley-Stein started to play better down the stretch. You got Fox now at the point, Kenny. You got Hield, and now you got Jackson at the 3. You talk about fit. I know you love the player. How does your player fit with Sacramento?
Well, I think Justin Jackson, just his size and his stature, able to create shots, defend multiple positions, doesn't need the ball to score. What I mean by that is he could just be a catch and shoot guy. So he doesn't have a guy where you have to just give him the ball, get out his way. So his ability to make things happen in so many different areas of the floor, and to be an imprint in so many different areas is going to be beneficial to any team.
Yeah, Kenny, I like him because what you said and Seth said, watching him, he's improved. He can go out there and he averaged close to 19 points and didn't have to be the focal point. What I love is he still has room to improve. And yes, he was a 20th pick. He might have slipped, but he could end up being one of the top 5 players in this draft. There's not a lot of separation. Justin Jackson has been playing at a high level for a long time. This kid can play. He can flat out shoot the basketball, and he can do it efficiently. I like him. I like Justin Jackson.
All right, now here's the question for me, because this 16th pick, which Chicago has, it was reportedly part of the deal for Minnesota, although that's not on the board, so I guess Chicago still has it. Assuming that the Bulls do have this pick, when you look at how things have set up so far, and again, it was rumored that the 16th pick was part of this here, and I'm bringing you in live at Barclays. It is still showing us the Bulls pick. If it's Minnesota, okay, if it's Minnesota's pick, which we assume that it is here, you guys know that they're set now with Jimmy Butler. You got Karl Anthony Towns. Would you guys like to see a John Collins? Do you go for a 4 here? Would you take a shot at the unicorn Harry Giles and wait some time to see what he is? Where are you guys going here?
TJ Leaf is not even an issue for me. Yeah, I think he's a terrific. I mean, TJ is similar to Justin Jackson, but he's got a lot more nasty in him, certainly coming in as a freshman. And he proved that he can score in a lot of ways. He proved he's a high-level rebounder, a tough kid, good defensive player, can pass the ball. He's a winner. To me, I think he'd be a great pick at number 21.
There's so many different ways you can go. There's nothing wrong with Leaf. You can go John Collins. I think Jared Allen is a good fit for Minnesota because he's a guy that's like a center spot playing next to Towns, but there's so many different directions. I would say Minnesota, if I was picking right now, go Jared Allen.
They already got Jimmy Butler, right? So they get a win-win for their night regardless of what they do because their impact guy is already on the team. And as you said, Kenny, they proved to their fans that they are trying to take the next step forward. You're a T-Wolves fan. It's a good night.
Oh, it's a good night. You know, without question. You know, two guys reunited, had his best career years when he was with Thibodeau. So if you're a Minnesota fan, you're saying we're trying to make the playoffs and we're going to go for it next year.
All right, we'll find out whether it'll be a guy like Collins or be a TJ Leaf, who doesn't get talked about enough because of Lonzo Ball and what he did at UCLA. Remember, this was a trade. The Bulls end up getting Jimmy Butler, but in the deal, they get the 7th pick. They give up pick number 16.
Space for him that you can't leave, and you have space inside where you can't leave Cat Towns. So now he's able to kind of just be, where before he's making plays for guys that aren't great shooters, and Levine and everyone else that's in the game. So now he actually plays better with a guy like Jimmy Butler.
And you don't need, could facilitate, don't need him to score. Minnesota's going to be a lot happier. Hopefully Tibbs looks a lot happier on the sidelines.
Yeah, he
good
always looks happy in the summertime. Right? Yeah. When I see Tibbs in the summer, I'm like, you look like a different guy in the summertime.
Look rested, don't he?
Oh, my God. He looks. I didn't recognize him like 3 times. I walked right by him. We were in the summertime. I'm walking by. He's like, oh, you? Like, I don't know who you are.
He's happier tonight.
No question.
For sure. All right, I'm in New York, so I'm thinking Dr. K at 16. Let's take a look back.
The Utah Jazz select John Stockton of Gonzaga University.
With the 16th pick in the 1984 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz selected John Stockton. The choice was a surprising one, since not many heard of the 6'1" point guard out of Gonzaga. And the Jazz already had a floor general in Ricky Green. But Stockton learned from his time as a backup until his Hall of Fame career was jump-started with the arrival of Karl Malone, the Jazz first-round pick in 1985. The two developed a unique chemistry almost immediately. And Stockton to Malone became synonymous with the winning pick-and-roll basketball for 18 seasons in Salt Lake City. With the 16th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Chicago Bulls select.
A conversation we had when we were in our little suite before. You said
Travis Mines, who tweeted us this picture of Smitty's draft card from back in the day with, as he calls it, the bald fade straight from the city, but it wasn't all good, unfortunately, for the panel. Nick tweeted, Drake
in herself. So I'm feeling your jacket right now. It does look like my grandmother's old couch, but it looks swaggy though. Indirectly, no man, stop. So the one thing that you really pay attention to now is you still play the course. You don't change her.
They do their homework. They know how to pick guys that fit their system. Jason Kidd and those guys, Stacey Allman, Coach Gergerich, they do a nice job of being able to pick the guy that they want. And the one thing I think a lot of these NBA teams have to do, you got to understand is and have confidence in your assistant coaches that you can develop. They're doing a nice job of developing these guys, getting them to up to speed to reach their potential. So I'm looking forward to who they're picking because I know.
So
that's going to be Josh Hart.
This is very important if you're a general manager and you're a staff to continue to stay the course. This is when you don't panic because this is when some of the best players, being drafted late sometimes makes the guy work harder. And it makes him have a chip on his shoulder that he wouldn't have had if he was picked number 9, and he might have been a little bit more content, but to a better team. So when you go to a better team, then you also have to go to the same type of mindset. So this could help someone.
All right, the Bucks at 17 will pick. So far we've already seen a couple of trades, including the big one and the big thing of the night, Jimmy Butler on the move. As we move and look back at number 17.
The Milwaukee Bucks select Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Now that I get drafted in the NBA, for sure we're going to have a better life.
With the 2nd pick in the 2014 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Jabari Parker. With the 10th pick in the 2016 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Thon Maker.
I had to take it really slow just so I can gather myself. Don't fall when you get to the stairs.
With the 36th pick, the Milwaukee Bucks select Malcolm Brogdon.
With the 17th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select.
Let's put his name in the draft. I thought maybe he was just testing the waters. And to me, it's why the current system that's set up that allows these kids to test the waters works so well, because he obviously made a really good decision. He's got a lot of upside, but it's going to take him some time. I like TJ Leaf better, but pretty good pick anyway.
Speaking of decisions, our own Kenny Smith, he is no Harry and Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber who just went.
Kingswood barbecue sauces, real ingredients like brown sugar and smoked hickory, built on 90 years of grilling tradition. Start something real. New Kingswood sauces.
Critics are calling All Eyes on Me an incredible achievement.
I'm Tupac.
I know who you are.
One of this week's People Picks. Demetrius Shipp Jr.'s performance nails the hip-hop superstar.
Let's get it.
All Eyes on Me. Rated R. Now playing in theaters.
You want a great-looking lawn, but have dry spots, dog spots, high traffic areas, and shade. Not anymore. Introducing the revolutionary Hydro Mousse Liquid Lawn with spray and stay technology. The grass grows where you spray it. Simply attach to any garden hose and turn the dial to seed. The Green Mousse formula contains an eco-friendly sticking solution that attaches the seed to the soil and a conditioner to loosen hard dirt, allowing it to absorb water, resulting in a terrific-looking lawn. It's perfect for dog spots, high traffic areas, large areas, and shade. Get the complete Hydro Mousse kit for only $19.95. That's enough to do 100 spots or 50 square feet. Now and we'll double the coverage. That's an incredible 200 spots or 100 square feet. And don't forget to ask the operator for large lot discounts. So don't put up with this when you can have this.
Call 1-800-886-6156 or go to
Dumars of McNeese State.
Although the Pistons were pretty good that year and already had Chuck Daly, Isaiah Thomas, and Bill Laimbeer, they were still a few years away from dominating the league and taking on the persona. But Joe D was a cerebral defender and smart decision maker who, along with Dennis Rodman, helped transform Detroit basketball into an intimidating and physical team that won back-to-back NBA championships in 1989 and 90.
Even though it hasn't happened yet, may not tonight now, that Paul George is going to be on some other team when we get to next. This is going to be a team that's building. How do you like TJ Leaf as well?
I do think we're getting to the point in the draft as someone who saw Harry Giles quite a bit in high school. If Harry Giles was healthy, he may have been the first player picked.
2015 before being traded to Indiana last summer. With the 19th pick of the 2017 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select
John Collins is the pick out of Wake Forest. I don't want to put too much into one game, but we all talked about it before. Let's get into it now. That first 4-game set that you and I did in studio, and Smitty, you called, we didn't see the aggression that the scouts were looking for from a guy who's got to hit the boards. Is the motor what you want to see, Seth, out of Collins?
Yeah, I don't think motor is the issue with him so much as his frame. And I think that defensively he's going to get abused down low. But a lot of 20 kids, he's actually 19, are going to get abused down low in the NBA. Again, I like guys, we're talking about Justin Jackson, talking about DJ Wilson. I like guys who have shown the ability to improve. There's a guy later in the draft who get picked at some point, probably in the second round, Ivan Rabb from California, did not improve from his freshman year to sophomore year. That would concern me. So for somebody like John Collins, he goes from averaging 7 points a game as a freshman to 19 as a sophomore, 10 rebounds, 60% from the floor. I think he has the ability to develop an NBA three-pointer. Didn't make any college threes, but he's shown that he has a nice touch. So I think he's a promising offensive player, but like just about every guy who's picked tonight, he's not going to have a huge offensive impact in the NBA next year.
Smitty, you saw him up close and personal. What do you think of Collins, and how about the fit? A team that's definitely now forward-looking. Atlanta's not going to be a team that we expect to go try and win this year. To Kenny's point, some teams are, some aren't. How about as you move forward now, Collins is a piece with the Hawks?
I like his size. I like his footwork. Down on the low block, he can score the basketball. He can draw double teams. For me, it's him you get developed and being consistent. And I think, like Seth, seeing him on that defensive end, he struggled in that game I got a chance to call. But the one thing he could do was rebound the basketball.
Sacramento Kings
take a guy out of the University of North Carolina. His name was Kenny Smith. 30 years later, the Sacramento Kings take a guy out of the University of North Carolina. His name is Justin Jackson. Justin, congratulations. Any shout out to Kenny here on our set tonight?
I mean, he was one of the greats in North Carolina. Obviously, he was a great player in the NBA. You know, I got to talk to him a little bit this week, and